Welcome back. The current pandemic has disproportionately affected Latino communities, both health-wise and economically. And according to a new poll conducted by Unitos US and Latino Decisions, COVID-19 is one of the top electoral issues for Latino voters. Gina recently spoke with Clarissa Martinez, Deputy Vice President at Unitos US, about the issues affecting Latino voters here in Colorado.
Clarissa, welcome. We're so glad you're with us. Let's start off really by what are the results of the latest research on top election issues for Latino voters?
Well, as you mentioned, the Latino community has been not only disproportionately impacted by the effects of the pandemic, but we're also overrepresented among the essential workers helping the country as a whole get through. So it's not surprising that for half of Latino voters in Colorado, the top priority heading into the election is an effective response to the pandemic. In Colorado, 1 in 4 Latinos have seen themselves or somebody in their household lose a job or have a decrease in wages, which is having an incredible impact in the ability for folks to be able to pay the rent and keep food on the table.
Can you share some more specific statistics on Latino voters here in Colorado?
Absolutely. We know that 1 in 8 Latinos in Colorado right now don't have insurance, even though we are suffering through a health pandemic. So for a majority of voters in Colorado, Latinos, one of the necessities is to make sure that we have access to treatment for COVID at a reduced rate or or free. That is one very key thing to be able to overcome the pandemic. In addition to that, we know that 95,000 people in Colorado were not able to get the support from the relief packages that were passed in Congress. So we see that for Latinos, a big priority is to make sure that there's equitable relief in any of the measures Congress approves so that all workers and all families are able to access these supports in these critical times.
Clarissa, how are some of your statistics and information really, how are they differing from previous election years?
The top 5 priorities for Latinos this election year are overwhelmingly effective response to the pandemic, followed by reducing the cost of healthcare, job creation and better wages, to stop discrimination, and to achieve a better treatment of immigrants. So the way that that is different, not surprisingly, is that the pandemic has risen to number 1. It's not something we had in previous years. But in previous years, we have seen a very high concern about the cost of healthcare and a need for better job creation. The incredible thing right now is that with all of these concerns, there is growing alarm in the Latino community about discrimination and race relations and about the state of our immigration system. So those are the top priorities in this year and what Latino voters are going to be thinking about when they head to the voting booth.
You bring so much excellent information. Where can our viewers go if they would like a little bit more information on what you've just discussed?
To check the polls that we have been conducting over the last 8 months that document the impact of COVID on Latinos, and more importantly, to learn as a voter how you can make your plan to vote, which is critical right now in a pandemic time, you can go to Adelante Unitos.com and navigate that process. We know that there's a lot of changes in the way that elections are being administered. You can look and see your ability to vote and how to deliver your ballot, particularly in Colorado, but make your plan and make sure that you get it done. And then when election day comes around, make sure that you join everybody, all voters, to demand that every single vote is counted.
Absolutely. All right, Clarissa, thank you so very much for joining us.
You have the power to hold local, state, and federal officials accountable for the decisions that affect your life. This election, it's up to all of us to vote. For more information on what was discussed in today's segment, please visit AdelanteUnitos.com. They paid for today's segment.